We're live.
Welcome everyone to our live stream today, episode 10 of our podcast. We're going to be talking about a couple of subjects tonight. The title is The Truth of Hong Kong, but we've got a few things to talk about. We've got some new commenters with us tonight. Well, this afternoon, tonight, this morning, wherever you're listening. So yeah, we're going to talk about Hong Kong. We're going to talk about China watchers. We're going to talk about the silliness of British MPs and a host of other things. Today we've got a new commentator with us. We've got Jen. Say hello, Jen.
Hi, Jen.
We've got...
Please carry on.
Well, I mean, you can do if you want. Hi, I'm Jen
Okay.
is enough. It's up to you.
Yeah.
What do you want
Hi,
to
I'm
say?
Jen.
The floor is yours.
I'm Jen, and on Twitter. My name is One of a Kind. Born and raised in UK, and yeah, I've been not been that vocal with politics, but recently because of the Xinjiang fake lies and all the fake news, I've been very vocal, and yeah, here I am.
Nice. Your tweets always make me laugh.
Good.
I like it when you say things like call people cabbage stick.
sticks.
I love it. we have like an entire parody of a media group with us. We have the Ecock Times.
Hi, yes, I'm the Ecock Times on Twitter. For the benefit of everyone else who doesn't like to say the cock word, they can call me E. And like Jen, I'm also a British-born Chinese. I was born and lived here my whole life in Britain. But I guess I've always been quite left, but now I would say I'm becoming a baby Marxist-Leninist, I suppose you could say. And just learning more about global politics.
Nice. Well, it's a pleasure to have you both. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
I'll introduce the rest. Sammy, you might have just heard him there at the start say we were live, like a director of his clipboard. We're live. Managed to get in. Sammy, say hello.
Hello everyone, it's me again.
Again. Foisted on the public again.
Indeed.
Tom?
Hi everyone, it's now at Real Chairman Tom, if you want to follow me.
If anyone listens back to our episodes, it's going to be so hard for them to. If they listen to that episode 2, that just doesn't exist anymore. If you play, in a couple of years, we're going to be able to like track your Twitter accounts via what handle you give at the start of the episode.
For the time being, it's at Real Chairman Tom, which obviously is based on at Real Donald Trump, or that's where I got that inspiration.
Oh, nice! I'd gone straight over my head. That Tom.
Yeah. I thought it was a good little, I was
Awesome.
trying to come up with a new name. Yeah, go on. Anyway.
Nice. Well, pleasure to have you both. We've also got Vito live from Hong Kong.
Hi.
Hey.
Hello. Yes. Hi, my name is Vito, and just a regular guy in Hong Kong. Just
Here to give us his 2 cents.
That's the name of your.
I'm not sure how to do introductions. That's
That's enough.
really.
Yeah, the humble. I'm just a guy in Hong Kong. That'll do.
Yeah, just a guy in Hong Kong.
What more do people want?
Just searching discrepancies. Yeah, what can I?
Just a guy in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you as well with us today.
Thank you.
Before we get into the show, Sammy, you've been like begging me to let you have the floor for 5 minutes or whatever. So go on.
Yeah, basically I just wanted to give a very quick shout out and an update on what's going on in Western Sahara right now. This is something that very few people know about actually. Since the 70s, or since last century, after the Spanish colonialists left Morocco and the Western Sahara, Morocco actually claimed that territory and outright invaded it, and to this day occupies about 80% of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic territory, while the latter currently has 20% of the territory. Now, since the 80s, Morocco has, obviously with close ties to Israel and the United States and all the imperialist backing, that also includes weapon sales from Israel. They've been occupying the SADR without giving their population any sort of democratic self-determination. There has been a ceasefire between the Polisario Front and Morocco since 1991, which again, like, it keeps the 80-20% borders. However, I think a couple of days ago now, Morocco has launched another invasion into the remaining 20% of the land, and the Polisario Front, along with its armed wing, the People's Liberation Army of Western Sahara, have announced the return of the armed struggle. So, solidarity, comrades.
Nice.
This is something the Maoists might want to hop on, make some use of their time.
Yeah.
Just want to point out, Sammy, as well, that, like there is still Spanish colonialism in the Saharan regions. They've got 2 enclaves which they won't give back to Morocco. I was forced to go to one during one of my university stays from the state of Melilla. There's Melilla and Ceuta, which are both stolen Moroccan territories, and almost every day you see people trying to storm the border wall and Spanish troops firing on them. So it's quite a horrible ongoing piece of colonialism that almost nobody knows about. But obviously, as you said previously, like, no one knows anything about the Sahara, so it's kind of
basically the nutshell is the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic are fighting for self-determination from the Moroccan occupation, pretty much. And the Moroccan occupation has all of the imperialist backing, by the way. So yeah.
Why is our recording bot not working? There we go. He's in.
Now recording.
That's just for us. So if you're listening on YouTube, you can ignore that. That just means that we're recording our mics, so we can upload the episode to our podcast providers later. I will have to stitch that first bit on from the YouTube. It's my own fault. I was making a cup of tea. I forgot to get the recording bot in. You know, I'm only human.
Very British reason to fuck up that.
Yeah, exactly. I was making a cup of tea. Okay, so we've got a couple of questions coming in already. We'll get to them as we're going through the show. So the main topic of today is we're going to talk about Hong Kong, what's been going on, what is, why, the background, who they are, what they want, the truth about the place. So just to bring in, if anybody's not familiar, I mean, I suppose everybody is familiar, but if we'll give a quick recap of what the situation in Hong Kong is. So back in 2019, which seems like a decade ago now, there was a murder case. A Hong Kong resident murdered his girlfriend in Taiwan, and then he fled to Hong Kong. And then he admitted to the Hong Kong police that he'd killed his girlfriend. They were unable to charge him for murder or extradite him back to Taiwan because there was no extradition agreement in place between Hong Kong and Taiwan. So the Hong Kong government drew up like a bill to enable extraditions for cases like this. So the murderer could be sent to Taiwan and put on trial for the murder of his girlfriend. It was a real brutal murder. He stuffed her into a suitcase and ditched her by a park, I think, in Taiwan, and then just fled back home to Hong Kong. He himself, she was pregnant. He himself handed himself into the Hong Kong police and actually was quite cooperative with them in a way. I think he was ashamed of what he created after that. Anyway, so this happening gave an opportunity for pro-democracy protesters to take to the streets against the bill, which has then escalated. The heat has just gone up and up and up. The bill got withdrawn a month or two after. I think it was maybe a month after or something. Because of the large-scale protests, the bill got withdrew. So there's no extradition between Hong Kong, Taiwan and China. Obviously, these pro-democracy reporters used it as an excuse to make out that it was all like a trick. So the communist PRC could extradite anybody they wanted from Hong Kong without no questions asked. This is what they made out, that classic sort of dog whistle. I actually think that Beijing warned the Hong Kong government against this bill to begin with. I don't think they wanted to really take part in it, because it was a matter between obviously Taiwan and Hong Kong, who have separate law books at the moment to the PRC. It's a legal nightmare, basically, brought on by historic,
colonialism,
wars and colonialism and all sorts. The whole situation in China is the reason why those three places, although they are all China, have different law books currently. So anyway, as these protests went on, the reason for it sort of changed, and it became all about blaming Beijing for being oppressive on Hong Kong. The protesters would then start fights with police. They trashed the Legislative Council. It escalated in the same way that Ukraine escalated. They were hitting the same things, telling people that they had to come out and stand with them, or they weren't. They were enemies of them. They had these 5 demands. Does anybody know what they were off the top of the head? I can't remember. It's that long ago.
No.
I think one of them is like it's sort of like similar to abolish the police, like how which isn't really kind of like abolish the police, but to defund the police.
Okay.
And to take off the extradition bill.
Okay, so I've got them up here. So number 1 was completely withdraw the extradition bill, which, like I've just said, happened. Number 2 was retract the proclamation that the protests were riots. Well, they descended into rioting, throwing Molotov cocktails and trashing, setting
people
fire.
alive.
Well, this is later still, isn't it? But setting fire to public transport, basically trying to, building barricades, setting fire to toll booths, torching businesses.
Old people's heads getting smashed in.
Number 3 is withdraw criminal charges against all protesters. Number 4 is thoroughly investigate the abuse of powers by the police. Number 5 is immediately implement dual universal suffrage. So they were the 5 demands that came about. Number 1 is obviously related to this murder case, because that's the original thing they jumped on, which was being against the extradition bill, now withdrawn. So as the movement had no real cause, popular support kind of fell away, and it just left a bunch of radicals led by pro-American sort of rioters, basically. They were flying Donald Trump flags. They were flying old British colonial flags. Japanese flags. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
NATO, EU
I don't think
flags. We saw
all the culprits, basically. Go on, Vito.
Yeah. I don't think I've seen them as much I've seen as much Japanese flag as the UK or the US, but the
fact that it was there is enough, isn't it? This is the Japanese flag,
they were
imperial flag.
Yeah.
Being flown in Hong Kong, a country that was occupied by Japan.
They were kind of like defacing, the simple fact that they called Chinese mainlanders as SHINA. That's sort of like a Japanese slur against the Chinese.
Okay, so they're using Japanese slurs,
which is from the World War
fascist,
like the fascist Japanese slurs, and so like they kept calling because they really have a grind to bone with the mainlanders, because they always thought of them
this has been
as,
manufactured, hasn't
below
it?
them. Yeah.
This division between Hong Kongers and mainlanders.
It's always coming back to the sort of like a superiority complex from the Hong Kong, people themselves, like the Hong Kong radicals, and like as much as they don't want to they don't want to admit it, but they just really want to be part of this whole coalition with the West that they wanted to seen by the West as like we're not Chinese.
We're not communists. Yeah.
Yeah, we're
We're
not communists, but we're not Chinese. Like straight up, just denouncing their nationalities and replacing them with kind of like their own bizarro take of like what is a Hong Kong Chinese or what isn't, like that kind of like identity.
Okay, so this is, I mean, it's a classic
politics. Yeah,
it's a classic. Hold on, it descended into a classic fascist sort of racially, ethnically motivated movement, didn't it? Pretty fast.
Yeah.
And whether that's intentional or not is something that we can study, but a movement.
We saw how quickly, like you had the like people getting banned speaking Mandarin in Hong Kong restaurants and stuff, and you had like signs up in Cantonese saying, you know, any Mandarin being spoken, any mainland dogs not allowed in our shop and stuff like this. You had like the same kind of racial exclusionism that you had at the very early stages of Nazi Germany when they were breaking down Jewish businesses and stuff like that.
And in the Ukraine this year,
mainland,
not this year.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, for a more like contemporary example, the Ukraine definitely. But with Hong Kong, it's the first stage of pogroms was what you were seeing there, and you did end up seeing pogroms. You saw Chinese people who were, you know, proud of being Chinese, literally being beaten to death. You had people's heads being split open by these rioters, and then you had the rioters being praised on BBC as freedom fighters. And you were watching this news. It's disgraceful. It's disgusting.
They even like accidentally beat up Taiwanese people who were speaking Mandarin. And just going back to that point that Vito said about Hong Kong people denying they were Chinese. Denise Ho, grade Z celebrity. She went on, was it TED Talks or something, and she was saying that they weren't Chinese, they were Hong Kongese, and it was this new identity that they were forming for themselves.
Oh no, she specifically said, we are not Chinese, we are Hong Kongers. Oh, all right then.
This is literally like, this is Bill Hayton's book, The Invention of the Han Race, but backwards, isn't it? It's the invention of the Hong Kong race. It's literally what's happening, but he's just missed the mark by about like 3 entire Taiwan straits.
I mean, the thing is, right? They can be Hong Kongers. Nobody's trying to suppress that. Like, if you look at, like, people from Shanghai say, I'm Shanghaiese. You know, they speak their
Shanghainese,
own. Yeah, they speak their own language. They've got their own sort of tourism, marketing kind of stuff. Nobody's trying to stop you being a Hong Konger. Like, literally nobody. If you want to be a Hong Konger, you go ahead and be one. But like, at the expense of pushing racism, no, that's where we've got to say that this is a dead movement that should not be supported by anybody who considers themselves left, let alone by even the right, because, you know, historically, even the right wing has come out to fight against fascism in Europe in World War II. Right wing as in capitalist countries. I'm talking economic scale, right wing being capitalism, left being worker ownership, you know, socialism. So we've got a question in the chat from Thomas. It says, do you think that the Hong Kong government will try push for any kind of changes regarding the housing problems? Carrie Lam did not bring up that topic when she tried to negotiate with rioters last year. I think it's a great question.
Can I answer that? Sorry.
You can answer it. Hold on. I just want to make the point that these problems in housing in Hong Kong are legitimate problems that are due to Hong Kong being hyper-capitalist. If anybody doesn't know this, the Hong Kong government does have legitimate capitalist contradictions at play, but Josh Wong and his crew of Nazis are not the people to solve these contradictions. Go ahead, Vito, answer the question. Okay, we'll get back to Vito in a sec. I think he's just.
I'll chime in on that while he's away. I think as well you've got a very interesting thing where you've got a very reasonable demand, which is the housing demand, because obviously when you're living in Hong Kong and you look over at the mainland and you see how the poverty alleviation schemes have gone on in the mainland, you can see the disparity between Hong Kong capitalism and Shanghai and Beijing's socialism with Chinese characteristics massively. So for the youth, there must be a big desire to kind of replicate those conditions in Hong Kong, but they've been promulgated with so much anti-communist propaganda because they've been cut off from China for so long, and they've been a vassal state of the US and a UK port for so long, that these kids don't realise that they should be what they should be rioting for is unity with the mainland. They should be rioting to get the Yankee dogs out and send the fucking imperialists home. But they've fundamentally misunderstood the materialist situation of Hong Kong, and they've thought we want more capitalism.
Well, they don't know. They don't know who the. Yeah, well, Hong Kong has been shaped by colonialism and left with as much. The British have put as many layers of shit to wade through in the way that it's
what I mean with the anti-communism thing as well. Like it's integral in their education systems. They follow like a British style education system with standard British anti-communism built into it. It's not as inherent as America, but I think that's almost worse, because with the American system, at least you can laugh at it and go, oh well, they think Jesus was around in America 150 years ago, building gold tablets, and dinosaurs didn't exist. You just laugh at Americans, but and British education, it kind of drips the anti-communism in a way that makes it believable, because our education system is so good otherwise, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Also, I think one thing that a lot of people don't even talk about or fail to understand is that the Hong Kong Parliament at the minute, it is a capitalist economic city. The ruling party is right wing. They are pro capital. There is no left wing opposition in Hong Kong that is communist or socialist. There is no movement to get elected into that legislation. There is the blue camp, which is the ruling class right now, who are hyper capital. But with American characteristics. So you're seeing a battle between what Hong Kong has been left with. It's just a battle between two sections of the capitalist class. There's no left-wing alternative to come in and actually solve these problems, apart from if Beijing was to take control of that government and clear out these right-wing parties. That's why this housing will not get sorted. Now, Vito, are you back? Do you want to give us a bit of input on that? Vito? Well, he's come back. Oh, there you go. Do you want to answer that question?
Yeah.
You were going to answer it. Do you want me to read you the question again?
Yeah. So.
No, you do you want the question or not? The question is, do you think the Hong Kong government will try to push for any kind of changes regarding the housing problems? Carrie Lam did not bring up that topic when she tried to negotiate with writers.
He just muted his mic.
He's muted himself. Jen, do you want to talk about that? You're an expert in Hong Kong housing.
I'm not expert. It's just had quite a lot of friends in Hong Kong. They're trying to get on a ladder, and it's difficult. It's impossible. It's almost impossible over here in the UK, in London. So let alone Hong Kong.
Yeah.
No, you know what? I really think Carrie Lam, this whole rioting shit, if that's over, she will push it. I mean, she would already order to build that. I can't remember the English name. The Pearl Delta or the Pearl.
Oh yeah.
Pearl Delta Economic Zone.
Yeah, she already built that. But then there was a lot of hoo-ha about it. They were just against it. They thought, oh, she's doing that. She's liaising with the CPC and all that malarkey. No, but I mean, I can't remember when it was, but it was 1 year that CPC actually got involved.
Guys.
Central government. Hey, Vito.
Go on, Jen. Carry on.
Yeah.
No, I remember I can't remember which year, but it was one year that not Carrie Lam, central government, if I'm not wrong, they demanded some land back from the four tycoons. I don't know if it's all four or one of them. I remember them signing it off, and their faces were just pissed off. But I can't remember why they had to give it. I think because it was the lands were idle for so and so many years, and they had to give it up or something. I can't remember.
Right. Yeah. Well, that makes sense.
They were doing something like that. They were trying to solve it, but it was just constantly, rejected by the opposite party, and yeah, that's all I know.
Even what you're saying, it's still it's the capitalist class fighting the capitalist class, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Hong Kong needs a real left alternative to appear. Whether that, Carrie Lam can only do so much by the sounds. Vito, are you all right now?
Yeah.
Go on, answer the question.
Slight a bit of interruption with the internet.
So everybody is waiting to hear what you've got to say.
Yeah. Regarding the question that the guy in the chat asked, it's a purely bureaucratic problem, and also it's a political struggle. I would say between if the government wants to have more land, open more land, it kind of really puts into what the Department of Housing Authority would have sort of put in the work to sort of work into the logistics of how to open more land. There was one plan from Carrie Lam to open up more housings, but in sort of a far away remote island that can connect to Hong Kong, in Lantau, in a part of Lantau. But the thing is that because it might cost a lot, and it might sort of do a lot of it might be a logistical nightmare, and I think it's called Vision 2030. It's based in one of the islands in Lantau, but the fact is that there are oppositions, a really strong political oppositions from the people who just kind of didn't really get the whole picture, but I think they know what they're aiming for, which is the environmental consequences with the oceans and stuff like that. But the matter of fact that we have been pretty much having a bit of a problem with the poverty thing, where 350k people were still living in poverty. They're still living in for some of them still living in a 4x4 cages, and these people might need more support for job offerings and stuff like that. And there needs to be a point where people, not just the government, but also the people who really cares about the community, needs to sort of work together and not budget in political
arguing
and stuff
yeah,
like that.
Exactly. Yeah. They're arguing to hold this stuff up. Now I'm just looking at this. It's called Hong Kong 2030 Plus in English, what you're talking about, I believe. And I'm just scrolling through the PDF to go with it, and funnily enough, it's part of the Belt and Road project. So no wonder why. No wonder why the Yellow Camp is trying to hijack this, because it's part of Belt and Road. All you've got to do with these things is just find that link. Part of Belt and Road. Oh well, it's fair game for economic warfare against, then, isn't it? I'm only scanning through this document, but it looks pretty good to me.
Yeah, I think that the people were a little bit paranoid, and that has been like the thing that had happened for a long time because of like the media, such as Apple Daily, is
creating
constantly making up a lot of like political maneuvers to convince the people that China is the bad guy, but in fact that the entirety of the structure right now, with the economic structure and the infrastructure, it's provided by China, like the Chinese companies who have been pushing for their mark in Hong Kong, along with the West. But I think the West is now having less opportunity to work with into the realm, into Hong Kong, more into China, which is funnily enough, like people in the West are shouting like, "Oh, China human rights abuses, China bad."
Exactly. It's funny, isn't it? It's like they want Hong Kong.
Yeah, it's funny.
They want to use Hong Kong as an entry into China, but they've already got entries into China because most of them are doing business in China anyway. You know, it's all to do with.
It's a bit of a farce.
Yeah, a farce is the correct word. Farce is the correct word. So anyway, let's get back to this topic of what's been going on over there since. So it's been nearly 2 years since these initial protests kicked off, and although the violence has been stopped by the national security law to a certain extent, it's still sporadically happening. Now, what's China's plan with this? Are they just going to wait for these kids to all get either arrested, bored, or a
grow
job?
up?
Is that their plan? They're just going to starve the US out and make the US spend all this money on paying these protesters, you know, sending Brian Kearns there. Are they just going to sit there, literally? What do we think, guys?
I think they're just going to sit there. I mean, they've waited for so long now since it started. I mean, they've get rid of the pro-democracy legislators. I mean, they fired the four, which is I don't know the English names, but there's Young Otkil.
That was this week, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Didn't they all resign?
And the one that's freaking famous for, the one that he was screaming down the microphone saying that bearing a criminal record will make your life much more interesting. He was the one that shouted that out. And God. I mean, majority of, I'm sure Vito can confirm it. That majority of Hong Kong people are happy.
Like, I always found his character as a bit of a snobbish like guy who tried to, do what every sort of like opportunistic a politician would have done. So
a classic Western style politician, basically.
Yeah, and he has like the worst English accent that I ever heard of.
Oh my God.
And because of that, if I were to see him, I really wanted to punch him in the face, but not in this like time because of like the COVID and everybody's wearing masks and shit. Yeah.
Give him some COVID as well. Fix all of that.
Yeah.
Is he like the man version of Claudia Lowe?
Hey?
Is he like the man version of
BBC's...
Claudia Lowe?
Oh,
Is he the man version of who? Claudia? Is this another?
Claudia Lowe.
Another.
She.
Oh, Claudia Lowe. Oh God.
Oh God! It says enough.
She's a piece of work.
You just gotta listen to Vito's reaction to these people.
Did you see the press conference?
No.
No, the press conference when. No, go on, Ecop.
Oh, where she resigned?
Yeah, she handed in a resignation, but she didn't declare the date, the effective date. She just walked in there with her white envelope, as if she's the little victim. But yeah.
15 minutes of fame, as they say.
Yeah.
The press conference they had, it was hilarious because they knew that what's that called? Vito, what's Yandai is the NPC, right? Or was it C?
Yeah,
CP?
the NPC. I think there's 2 more C's.
The CPCCC
behind
something
us.
C, yeah.
Oh, CC,
Yeah.
CCP, yeah, CPCC, yeah.
Yeah.
So what
it's
is this?
They
Is it?
They were.
What's the actual group? Is this
I'll
some
let
sort
Jen
of?
explain.
Yeah, go on. Explain what the actual group is as well, because I've never heard of this.
No, Tom knows it. I mean, no, Fran, you know it as well.
Oh, you're talking about the National People's Congress?
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay, I'm with you now. I thought you were talking about some other Hong Kong body.
No.
Yeah, I missed that as well. Sorry.
No. Well, they were announcing that they will disqualify certain legislators, and these pro-democracy lot, Claudia Mo, all those little gang, they start coming out. They say, we want to hold a press conference. So they went, and everyone's holding their hand up, holding hands together, linking arms, saying that, we are united. If you disqualify these 4 people, then all 19 of us will mass resign all that malarkey.
Good.
And then no one gave a shit. And the next day, one resigned. Don't know who. They didn't tell me. One resigned, and it was immediate effect. Claudia Mo resigned, and then another one resigned, and don't know who they are. But yeah,
well,
so
we don't need to know who they are. They're just tools, aren't they?
They're just roasters.
Thing is, though, this
roasters, exactly.
This fantastic display of we're going to do a big, massive public stunt. We're all going to stand down and all that. And China's just rubbing its hands together, going, "Sound, give up the power. You don't give a fucking shit." You know what I mean?
On the front page of the Guardian. Wow.
No one wins but China here, and the UK is like, we're summoning the UK ambassador, and the UK ambassador's like, all right, yeah, sure, we can talk about the fucking agreement that Dominic Raab's never read in his life if you want, and I'll school Dominic Raab in English if you want to do it that way. It's just embarrassing. It's just absolutely embarrassing.
Well, I'm going to get the post up they made. I don't even think that he got called there, because I was watching his Twitter all day, and I'm thinking if he got called there, he'd just mention it, because he could just dunk on him. I think that was just newspaper fodder. So anyway, is it, Tom, you're going to tell me off, is it Liu Xiaoming?
Liu Xiaoming.
Liu Xiaoming?
Yeah, no, I think it is Liu Xiaoming, yeah.
Liu Xiaoming, okay.
Yeah, Liu Xiaoming, yeah.
So he said the decision of the NPC, which is the National People's Congress Standing Committee, is reasonable, lawful, and consistent with the Constitution of China and the basic law of Hong Kong SAR. It is completely wrong for the UK side to accuse China of not fulfilling its international obligations. We will reject all groundless accusations by the UK and a few Western countries against the decision of the NPC. Nowhere in the world, this is a key line, nowhere in the world will holders of public office, legislators included, ever be allowed to breach their oath, betray their country, and get away with it.
I love it.
And what's funny about all this with the UK involving themselves, well, not the UK, because it's Dominic Raab. It's not the UK. Dominic Raab is trying to pretend he's speaking officially for the UK, but he's not, because the UK government doesn't. They dip their toe in, but they don't actually say this stuff. This is Dominic Raab's personal opinion. He'll have views of my own in his Twitter bio to get away with it, for example. So anyway, the UK wasn't Brexit all about taking back control of our and not being dictated by Europe, and then for Dominic Raab to turn around and pretend that, I know he's a Remainer and he must like getting told what to do by foreign nations, but how can you be a politician and not even understand what fucking sovereignty is? And then also for that, how can any British politician fucking dare to dictate to a former colony in open? It's absolutely disgusting. It's
disgusting and rude. But
I think
Go on, Tom.
I think the main thing about it is this British government that we have right now, this Conservative Party government, was mainly elected on nostalgia and hope, really. Because Boris Johnson's government has no plan for the future. He's kind of just bumbling forward and hoping that populism will win successfully every time. But there's this kind of massive...
Sorry.
Go on.
Did Dominic Cumming just quit yesterday.
Yeah, and he's basically
from
like
Johnson's government.
Yeah,
well, yeah, that is
Johnson's
Boris Johnson's
leaders.
government effed, isn't it? Because Dominic Cummings is the puppet master, isn't he?
He leads it all, but like, so that's it. That's basically the government saying, "All right, Boris is going to resign next week as well." But the point being, this government was elected on nostalgia, xenophobia, and misguided hope. Basically, if you elected a government pro Brexit, but also with like a forward-thinking plan, like joining the Belt and Road Initiative, one that would actually be better for the UK's forward like development, then fair enough. But you haven't. You've elected this government based on some kind of toxic, xenophobic, will maybe become another colony of America kind of thing. But it's rebirthed all this "we were a great empire" feeling within the UK, and I feel like most of the people in this podcast today are in the UK currently. So you can all kind of attest to how this like weird, like imperial nationalism masturbation has kind of like spiked massively over the past 4 years.
Farage and his
Farage is a massive a massive thing of it. But like as a result of that, you've got dickheads like Dominic Raab, who doesn't understand anything about politics, history, or anything relevant to the situation, trying to put his opinion into like one of the most largest geopolitical skirmishes in known history. Like, it's fucking ridiculous. We've got the most incompetent government representing our issues. We should be miles away from China. The only thing we should be talking to China about is apologising for turning down their 5G investment and asking them if they can still build us our Hinkley Point nuclear power plant.
And our high-speed trains.
And apologising.
For half the price.
Boris Johnson should be kneeling down in front of the Forbidden Palace, begging Xi Jinping for forgiveness.
Definitely should. I mean, I agree. At the end of the day, where you follow where the money is and who's going to do better for your country, and whether you support communism or not, China is the country with the fairest deal in the world right now. And while we're on topic of the UK government and regarding Hong Kong, for every Dominic Raab, there are 10 Labour MPs out supporting these Hong Kong protests, and Labour, Chinese for Labour, which is one of their factions, is now literally just like a front for Hong Kong protest, or must be pumping money into the Labour Party somehow from rich Hong Kong yellow camp donors. So they're all at it. Both sides are at it, and I think you wanted us to bring up the BNO situation, didn't you? So we'll talk about that while we're still on the British government. The BNO thing is, like I said a minute ago, the UK government will dip its toe. It will say something and then it will say something else at the same time. Now, I think that's why this is a good topic to talk about, because the BNO thing is pretty much that. So if anybody doesn't know, the UK has a visa for Hong Kongers. It's is it British national origin or something like that it means?
British national overseas.
Overseas, that's what it means. So it's a former it's a former colonial passport for people who were born pre-handover. Basically, there are certain terms to getting a BNO. It's not just being born under British rule. I think there are a certain few other rules, but I don't know fully. But anyway, the UK kind of got bullied by the USA. Well, the USA's poking them with a stick the whole time. Come on, guys, this is your former colony. Do something. So the dipping of the toe on that side of the coin is this BNO thing, where the UK government go, all right, yeah, we'll allow BNO holders to move to the UK easier by giving them a longer holiday visa. And that's pretty much all it is. They have to be able to support themselves in the UK, which is like earning 25k a year or something, some silly terms. They've got to pay visa fees. The UK has made it as hard and as pointless and as hard to achieve as possible, so they don't get flooded with loads of I mean, at the end of the day, like you've just said, the UK government is xenophobic. They do not want this country to get flooded with Hong Kongers as well, because then all their base is going to be like, oh, you're letting immigration run wild. They're sort of caught in a place. So to palm off the USA, they introduced this BNO scheme. Now, have you been doing a bit of maths, haven't you, Ecock?
Yeah, there's pretty good website that's done. They would say it's back of the napkin calculation, so it's not like absolutely 100%, it's down to the penny. But it's called freemovement.org.uk, and I think it's a bunch of lawyers. I don't know that much about the website itself, but they've basically calculated like all the fees that they'd have to pay. For example, the UK ancestry visa itself costs £516 for 5 years, which is okay. But then we get onto the other stuff. £624 per year for adult immigration health surcharge with a reduced rate for children. So over 5 years, that's £3,120 per adult, £2,350 for under 18s. And so altogether, a family applying for 4 coming to the UK with BNO visas. So bear in mind the parents would have had to have BNOs from like before 1997, basically, for a start. They'd be expected to pay £10,940 in immigration surcharge, plus £2,064 in visa fees, all up front. And then finally, the indefinite leave to remain, that's like £2,408 and 20p. And so, yeah, it adds up to quite a lot of money. And I think I did a very quick calculation. My math is absolutely terrible. But altogether, for an adult, it would be around, let's say, about 7,200. So let's just call it nearly 10 grand for an
10
adult.
grand a year, or is that in total?
Oh, in total for the 5
Okay, so they've got
years,
to spend 10 grand.
Alone.
They've got to spend
just to
10
get
grand and also bring in like 25,000 a year as well as part of this rule or something, haven't they? They've got to be earning it. It's a decent whack
30.
they've got to it. It's almost like double the British average. For what
30 grand.
You are not. That's the whole thing just doesn't work, because there is no way that I mean, if Josh Wong was a normal kid, there is no way that he's coming over here and walking into a 30 grand a year job. Not without some sort of nepotism in place, but not everybody knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who can get you that job. There is no there's going to be 10 people who take up that deal and can afford it and can see it through.
Exactly. I mean, no, go on.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say there's a very good video on SCMP on YouTube by the chief news editor called Yondan Latu, and it's called "Why the UK Citizenship Offer to Hong Kongers is a Political Sham." And he basically goes through how the UK has had a very poor COVID response. BNO people will be escaping from Hong Kong, which is relatively safer, to like a COVID hotspot. And that there's also mass unemployment, difficult to get jobs. Like, obviously, the locals that are already here won't like it if they sort of see like a lot of people suddenly coming over and taking their jobs, if that actually happens. And they would not get free healthcare anymore. There's just not any benefits to coming here, really. Like, it's just a political kind of.
It's a virtue signal to the USA.
To do.
It's a big virtue signal. Jen, what were you going to say, Jen?
No, I was going to say that it's with the BNO, all the requirements that they set out and the fees that you have to pay. If you look at majority of the writers, the kids, right? I'm not talking about the adults. They probably get paid God knows how much. The kids, they get fuck all. They're still students. I mean, if they're students, they're not making money. Who's giving them money?
Are they even eligible for BNO? Because you've got to be born before 1997.
No, they're not.
So a lot of them are like 15, 16, 17, 18. Some are maybe like the top end lot might be able to.
Top end, yeah. But I mean, I was talking to quite a few of my Hong Kong lot over there the other day, and they were just thinking it's not feasible. No sane Hong Kong person would actually want to get the BNO and apply to be over here. Just put it out straight. I'm not paying fucking 10 grand to go to another country to be a third class citizen.
Exactly.
That's it.
To wait on tables, like it's working McDonald's.
Exactly. They're not going to get a decent job unless they have a decent qualification, job experience. They are not getting anything when they come over here.
And those people who do have that were eligible to come over before anyway.
Exactly. So it's just a whole pile of shit show. It's a sham.
But it's hilarious. It is hilarious. I mean, it is hilarious because it does show that the UK does not give a shit about Hong Kong protests, really. unless it's to virtue signal like Dominic Raab, and they don't give a shit about pleasing the USA if it's at the Tories will not please the USA if it pisses off their voter base. I think the USA have just threatened to, we'll not have a post-Brexit trade bill with you if you do an internal trade bill or something. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but there is definitely beef between the UK government and its special relationship. You can't see me doing the finger thing.
Biden.
But I think,
On,
I think it's about. Oh, sorry. I think it's about like the Huawei thing that like earlier, I think last year, the British government have no problem implementing 5G from Huawei because
I think this is another one though.
Yeah,
this is another.
And now when the US threatened UK, they all kind of.
It's 1950. Sorry for interrupting.
They all kind of flip. They all kind of flip their positions, and now they're like the government officials are like now saying that we're not using Huawei as our like.
No, they've not said this though, Vito. This is the thing. The media have printed it, but the actual discussion the government had was, we'll look into this again at a later date. But here are some like vague aims and terms, like to remove Huawei by 2030. Like that's 10 years away or whatever. Like the technology will have already been removed by then and replaced with even greater and better things. So
10G.
Yeah. Exactly. These we'll be on 10G by then. Like this is what I mean, where they'll say something, and on at the other side, it's having your cake and eating it. The UK government is so good at having its cake and eating it, isn't it?
Yeah, and also Raab announced that he's going to apply human rights sanctions against any countries that they quote unquote think that they're having human rights abuses. But the ironic thing is that the UK government is also the one who's been supplying arms to the Saudis to even if you Yemenis. I mean,
even if you don't look at the foreign, even if you don't look at the UK's foreign abuses, even look at their domestic ones, we have millions of people, millions of
the
children
UN
starving.
He was like flat out saying that we're going to sanction countries that we don't like, but we also wanted to be the one who's like you see the problem with
human rights, but you say human rights, don't they? But it doesn't mean anything, because like you look at how China and Hong Kong dealt with the protests and how few people were injured. There was, I think, 2 people were shot by police and 0 people were killed during the Hong Kong riots. Now in the UK, 2 people were shot non-fatally. Like that's the only 2 people that were shot.
And the kid who got shot, both of them were trying to grab guns off policemen.
Yeah, they were trying to disarm policemen, so they did deserve it. But regardless of that's point being, no one died. Whereas in the UK protests, we've had protests where people have died. In America, every single day, people are getting shot and murdered in like war-like protests. But these are the countries that are imposing these human rights stickers on other nations freely at will, saying, "Oh yeah, you're the violator." We can't point to any actual example. And maybe Adrian Zenz can in his book.
Well, the UK got accused. The UK got accused of human rights abuses over their benefits system, didn't it, by the UN, because of austerity? How many people were starving and just forgotten about?
Time to invade ourselves.
Yeah, time to invade ourselves.
Yeah. I think like another thing, like I was asked this question that was like, what do you think about they were like, I believe in Hong Kong independence, and I was like, okay, like how are you going to who's gonna, if you believe in Hong Kong independence, like you break away from China, right? You stop, you just cut them off. then who's going to feed you, water you, house you, clothe you? What, like America, Britain? Like, we can't even feed our own people in this country, and neither can the USA. How can they feed another territory in another land? It's beyond me.
Exactly, but another good point as well is if you look at Hong Kong as a place, its entire wealth is based on the fact that it has always been a trade hub between the East and the West. Whether it was stolen from China or returned to China, it's always been this intermediate trade import between East and West. If it went independent, China wouldn't deal with it, and therefore it loses all of its relevance as its entire purpose. And
I mean, that's the same reason why the British held it, though, as well, isn't it? The British held it as an entry into China. Like, so if it goes
exactly, then if it becomes independent, it becomes another Taiwan, and it ends up buying 50-year-old warplanes that can't keep in the air more than 15 minutes.
But even Taiwan has got like space. You know, this is just a fucking city-state. We're going back to what ancient Greek times and having city-states away. Just for the hell of it.
I want Venice to be made great again if we're doing that.
Yeah, start with all these old merchant republics, like mad.
Fucking ridiculous.
So anyway, let's carry on. One of the funny things about Hong Kong. Go on, Jen. You say what you want to say first.
No, I'm just saying. Just about the rioters and the diasporas in UK and US. You know, I'm sure me and Ecot already heard a lot. Majority of the time it's the police are really brutal and all that crap, and saying they shot people in point blank, or they are kneeling on their heads and all that crap. You know, don't need to repeat it.
People get their heads kneeled on them in Britain every Friday night while they're out on piss.
Exactly. I mean, it's just their delusion.
Our police are vile.
This delusion of being under British rule, it was like it was glorious, it was glitterable, there was chandeliers, wow, yeah. And then I always repeat and ask them, do you even remember the riots and how the police under British rule, how they treated Hong Kong people? None of them
when you even pushed them into the walled city with no electricity.
Nothing. I mean, I'll give you two examples really quickly. In 1956. The Double 10 riots, which is in Cantonese, this Zhonstap Bodong. That was one of the deadliest. Actually, what's not the most? Actually, it is the most death count, I think. Yeah, during that time. I'll give you a quick background on what happened there. It was every year, October the 10th. You have the pro-communist and the pro-nationalist, the KMT.
Yeah.
And it was one particular area, I can't remember where, but they put up the huge flag, the white sun blue background, the KMT flag.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and at the time that was apparently it was against the law, under the British law, and who was it again? It was one of the. Hold on a minute. Whoever, the governor sent people over to get rid of the flag, and you know what happened, and then just getting rid of a flag, they just angered them. They got really furious, and they started protesting, saying, you're get rid of our freedom of expression. And so they did a lot of looting, a lot of mobbing, and there's not a lot of information on it, but apparently they've killed a Swiss diplomat called Fritz Ernst. No, they killed his wife, Fritz Ernst. And
wow.
What else? Yeah, and then I can't remember what date it was, but the Colonel Secretary Edgeworth David ordered extra forces, or armed troops to go to crowd control, and then the result was 44 deaths. And 33 of them were shot by bullet, 3 of them were suffocated from tear gas.
By the colonial police.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you said you had another example. Go on, tell us your second one.
Well, very quickly.
Just before you get into that, Jay, I get 59 deaths on my source. 59 deaths for the double 10-day riots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be more.
it says there in total there was 59 deaths and approximately 500 injuries. Property damage was estimated at over $1 billion, which obviously in 1956 was a lot. Anyway, back to what you're saying. Sorry.
Go on, Jen.
No. And the other one, the second example, 1922, the seamen strike is comprises of Hong Kong, Guangzhou, and Macau. They were fighting for workers' rights because they were being paid peanuts, and people were just basically taking the piss. They just wanted higher pay and workers' rights. 30,000 of them attended. But after, I don't know how long. It was back in January. Yeah, they started in January, and then in Western history, right? It says in March they came to an agreement. Everyone was happy ever after. That's what it says in the Western news. But from January to March, there was quite a huge amount of them thought, you know what? I don't trust this government. Let's just go back to mainland or wherever else. And so they did. Quite a huge number of them left. And then what is it? And then was it Governor Stubbs, the existing governor at the time called Governor Stubbs? He ordered there was the Kowloon Canton Rail, which is KCR. He ceased the service, so the train wasn't running. So these people had to walk from Kowloon all the way back up to mainland.
Yeah.
So
and then just get in the way.
Yeah, and then on March the 4th, there was a big group of them decided to let's just walk up together, and they arrived to Sha Tin. Sha Tin is in the New Territory, north of actual Hong Kong. They were stopped, and the governor literally said, just point blank, he ordered fire and killed 5. It was never an accurate number. It's either 5 or 6 workers. They just fired, and 5-6 workers died. And and I don't know the English, but in Cantonese it's sa tin chang on. It's like, as in I think cruel case of Sha Tin or something.
Nice. Well, before
so
we get on to you, Vito, I'm just listening to you then, Jen, and I'm thinking Winston Churchill did exactly the same to British strikers in Britain. He got the Welsh miners getting the army brought in on him. It's the same. The key point you made there, where you were talking about workers, that's the key point in all this British colonialism in Hong Kong. They're trying to stop Hong Kong turning into a workers' city. That's what they're trying. That's why they're trying this. Vito.
Yeah, since you mentioned Churchill, I was reading a South China Morning Post article where titled "Why Churchill Didn't Want Hong Kong Defended Against the Japanese and How Did Connolly Survive Wartime Occupation." In this article, it says that after the Japanese invasion of northeastern China in 1931, there were mixed views in London concerning the extent of Hong Kong's defenses, as it was firmly believed it would be difficult for the Connolly, just say Hong Kong, to withstand a Japanese attack. Yeah, Hong Kong to withstand a Japanese attack. Indeed, talks in London were less about how to defend Hong Kong than how to regain British sovereignty after the war. Archives review. The British did not want to see Hong Kong handed over to the Chinese nationalist government led by Chiang Kai-shek in defense of the Japanese defeat. So that was interesting, because after the all those thing about the British being the heroes in the Hong Kong, quote unquote Hong Kong size, it seems to be the fact that London, the British at that time, in somewhere before World War II, doesn't really wanted to ceded Hong Kong from anyone else's, including the nationalist government. which is by Chiang Kai-shek, which I found interesting because Chiang Kai-shek is never in a favorable eyes of the PRC, as I recollect, and it's sort of like he's sort of like a Christian missionary, which kind of fits into what the British
it's that tactic, isn't it? That's one of the tactics of imperialism, is to send in the missionaries, like Africa. It's filled it with missionaries.
Mm-hmm. So during that time, the governor Sir Godfrey's Northcote's term of office, he was addressing a special meeting of the Legislative Council on October 13th, 1938. So he was talking about the usual domestic and economic issues, but in conclusion, he noted that his address was printed before the invasion neighboring Guangdong province by the Japanese forces. The outbreak of that's what he says. The outbreak of hostilities so close to the border, he told legislators, is a matter of grave and regretful concern. As I have pointed out already, 3/4 of our fresh vegetables and a large portion of our fresh meat supplies have come from that province. And okay, so
I think what you're trying to say is Churchill didn't give a shit about Hong Kong.
Yeah. And secondly, Hong Kong must face the prospect of an additional serious refugee problem arising from this invasion. This, together with the military and police precautions which are necessary in such circumstances, will entail heavy charges upon the Hong Kong's funds. Again, the interruption of Hong Kong's long-established trade with China will bring heavy losses upon the revenue and upon commerce.
Yep, there you go. That's the key line there. That's the key line, Vito.
That's the key.
About trade with China through Hong Kong. You summed it up. It's like what Tom said. It's like what Tom said. Right. I want to bring this back onto the protests. We've got this movement going on at the minute. Save the 12. Now, these were 12 wanted criminals who chartered a boat from Hong Kong out to try and get to Taiwan. They got arrested by the Chinese police when they were in international Chinese waters. I don't really know the ins and outs of it. I never bother reading in depth on these things because it's just no point.
They fled after the national security law. NSL came in, and because they had 12 active warrants against them, they tried to flee in a speedboat to Chinese Taipei.
Yeah. Okay, so they're doing like a child.
And they got intercepted by the China's maritime militia, which I thought was hilarious. It wasn't even by the PLA; it was by the maritime militia, so just by a bunch of fucking fishermen who were like, "Nah, you're going back."
Yeah. So anyway,
they were saying that they were going fishing, and then when they found out the boat itself had four supercharged speed engines.
Crazy, right? One of the back. Oh, he's back. Go on, Jen. Tell us the crimes.
I don't know the names to each crime. No, I don't know the names of each crime, but some of the crimes that I've found online, the Hong Kong news broadcast. Andy Lee, which is the leader, he's charged with collaborating with foreign countries and forces that endangers the NSL. Okay. And they got 2 times of them, two crimes, 2 charges of petrol bombs. I can't remember what it says here. Well, they own the raw materials in order to make petrol bombs in their home in Wan Chai.
Yes,
and then
there was a real bomb maker, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was.
No, petrol bombs, wasn't it?
Yeah.
No, one of them was a real bomb maker.
Yeah, he's dangerous. He lives quite near to my family as well. He's charged with manufacturing DNT explosives in Shansu. And then the female, which is involved with him, she's involved in explosive case as well, which is the same one that manufactures DNT, and she's wanted. That's it. The other ones are suspected of possession of weapon. The police seized a semi-auto pistols, more than 100 rounds of ammunition, body shields, firecrackers, and all these hand knives. Yeah, and there's one more. One is charged with homemade bomb in YN College.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
I knew that, but...
An article that...
But do you remember?
We've got an article that talks about that bombing, about all the bomb stuff they found. So if you hop onto our website, there's an article on it. Go on, Sammy.
Yeah, I was just going to say, do you guys remember, like, a few months ago when the rioters basically occupied one of the universities in Hong Kong?
Oh, yeah.
And after the police...
They occupied two of them.
Yeah,
After
the police went in, they just found literally thousands of
they found bomb factories.
Anything from Molotov cocktails to even barrel bombs.
Yeah, there's a picture of a gas cannon. This wouldn't even work, but one of them had made it anyway. It was a metal. They must have watched too many American action films where someone shoots a barrel and blows up. There was this barrel, and they'd tape nails around the outside. Just ridiculous.
If you guys watch the live streaming, it's my god! I remember watching a live stream over here. I mean, it was like
I was watching that at the time. All the pro-democracy news agencies had men inside, didn't they? So they just fucking live streamed it all.
I mean, they did live stream them making Molotov cocktails. They were live streaming right there, and the people, just practicing their archery, shooting arrows, and oh my god.
Yeah, and then they lied about it was the police who forced them to that university, but instead it was actually they all went into that. They came in with gears prepared to make loads of bombs in there, and
I'm gonna try and find our article on this quick because we've got the stats. Carry on talking.
They're engaging in I remember they engaged in a confrontation where the police have one of their vehicle being firebombed by the rioters in the night, and it was the most
Here we go. Let me describe what we've got. Yeah. Between the 11th and the 16th of November 2019, several thousand protesters occupied the campus of the Chinese University of Hong Kong and committed wanton destruction of the campus and its nearby railway station, thereby forcing closure of the East Rail Line and the Tolo Highway. So this is why they did it, is to hit the infrastructure. Hundreds of riots, including students, took control of the campus and turned it into a manufacturing base for petrol bombs, with a sophisticated production line consisting of makers filling glass bottles with petroleum and different chemicals and then capping them with ignition fuses. A large volume of chemicals, including sulfuric and nitric acids, was stolen from university laboratories. Riots used petrol bombs and other types of weapons, such as bows and arrows, to attack police officers when they attempted to restore lawful order. In a bid to peacefully resolve the situation, the police and the Vice-Chancellor and President of the university entered into a discussion to secure a resolution agreement. However, the resulting agreement was rejected by the protesters gathered on the campus. And on the 16th of November, after a 5-day-long occupation, the police regained control of the campus bridge over the highway. The university's management made a report to the police to seek assistance in clearing the rest of the campus. As a result, the protesters fled the campus before the entrance of the police, who seized over 3,900 petrol bombs.
And then you get hundreds of...
And then on the 5th of December, a month later, on the hillside near the Xingmun Reservoir, I'm probably butchering the pronunciation of these places, the police found 59 bottles containing 137 litres of assorted chemicals that were suspected to have been stolen from the university libraries.
And then you get hundreds of thousands of Reddit incels celebrating all this.
Yeah. Yep. And then after that, they went to the Hong Kong Polytechnic University, which got occupied by over 1,000 of them. The campus again was turned into a weapons factory with lethal weapons with bows and arrows, homemade bombs, were made. Videos filmed from within show the rioters practicing throwing petrol bombs into the swimming pool that they drained and practicing their bow and arrows. The university became a powder keg, and here again, the rioters set fire to an adjacent major transport interchange and forced the closure of the Cross Harbour Tunnel, therefore causing parts of the city to be gridlocked for days. So they're occupying this not only to have a weapons factory, but both universities have got an ulterior motive, which is to ruin Hong Kong infrastructure so people can't get to work. That's why they were hitting trains, why they're hitting thingies, travel highways and stuff, dropping stuff onto there as barricades. So hold on. Given the large number of young and underage people inside the campus, the police adopted a prudent, humane and flexible approach to resolve the situation. They formed a working group consisting of different stakeholders, including the university's management and community leaders. Members of the group entered the campus and implored the protesters to leave peacefully, which you can actually see on their videos because they were live streaming all this stuff, like Jen said. Eventually, 810 people were arrested leaving the campus, some after voluntarily surrendering, and then others who tried to break out and escape. A total of 318 youngsters exited the campus but were not arrested. Instead, they just had their ID and personal details recorded before being released.
Such oppression.
Because they were underage.
Such oppression, wow.
Yeah, such oppression.
Do you know what's really funny though? You know, these kids, they all praising Apple Daily, Next Media, and all that crap. Apple Daily, Jimmy Lai, he's the very one. He published their names on his newspaper.
Mm.
Yeah, he's the one. Yeah.
It says here that hold on. It says here in total 4,296 petrol bombs were seized over both sites. Oh no, wait, this is just PolyU, so this is on top of the stats we gave before from Hong Kong University. And 671 bottles of chemicals were stolen, and 662 other weapons were seized. Adding to the 4,000 plus from PolyU, there was as many as 10,000 petrol bombs collected from these weapons factories.
Fucking hell.
Crazy. Go on, Ecot, what were you going to say?
Didn't mainland university students literally have to, it was almost like a refugee crisis, like they had to get on a boat back to the mainland because they were in danger.
Yeah, well, there was one of their student halls, they got barricaded in, didn't they? I remember seeing the videos of this online. The rioters were standing outside their student halls, putting notes under the door and banging on the door, like trying to threaten them and stuff. I remember the girl was filming the video, wasn't she? You could hear them banging on the other door and shouting at her to come out so they could like flog her or whatever. Disgusting behaviour. And these are the people who have escaped on this boat in Taiwan that we're talking about. My God, what was that? Somebody just dropped
me.
What did you do?
It's all right. It's fine. My headset's out of battery, so I was just plugging it in, and then something else fell over. It's fine.
Okay, so let's just talk about the bombs while we're on this subject, because they never get really spoken about in the West. So there was there's been an IED detonated in Mongkok in an attempt to kill police officers. The homemade bomb was planted in a flower bed, and it was detonated as police officers parked their vehicles to clear roadblocks. So they made a roadblock and put a bomb next to the roadblock, basically. So when the police officers stopped, it got blown up. And there were reporters, protesters, and bystanders around at that time as well in the area. This is the brazen attitude of them. That you mentioned, was it Huayan College? Police.
Yeah.
Bomb disposal officers defused 2 large improvised explosive devices outside the college. The devices were found to be complete, fully functional, and radio controlled, and could be activated by a mobile phone. They contained a total of 10 kilograms of high explosives, consisting of 2 types. The devices also contained a large number of nails that would serve as shrapnel upon detonation. Both devices had been constructed to serve a single purpose: to kill and maim people. And given the quantity of explosives, would have resulted in a large number of fatalities. This is outside a kids' college, Yawan College. Another one, during the second half of 2019, the explosive police were turned out for a record number of cases involving explosives. On several occasions, unstable and dangerous explosives have been seized in schools and in residential areas. 2 secondary school students, one age 17 and another age 18, brought explosive chemicals into their school in Ma On Shan. They were arrested for possession of explosives. One even had an empty cartridge in his pocket, an empty bullet cartridge, and was further charged with possessing arms and ammunition without a license. These are kids, 17 and 18. This is some, some extremist stuff.
The shit reminds me of Chai Ling in Tiananmen Square, when she's going on about how the only way to foment regime change is by forcing the government to massacre hundreds of young people. Like it's a very similar modus operandi. Why else would you build barrel bombs and nail bombs to massacre innocent kids with, unless you were hoping for a greater reaction from the mainland government kind of thing? And obviously if those kind of barrel bombs had been successful, then you probably would have seen a more authoritarian, as they would say, response from the mainland.
Could you imagine what the response would be in the West to some separatists putting bombs outside schools?
Yeah, well, you can see it in Catalonia.
It wouldn't happen.
It happened. They just get killed by the...
Exactly.
It's such a contradiction. And our news, The Guardian, Channel 4, BBC, these news agencies, will not even... They don't even talk about it. Nobody knows there's been all these explosives. And one of the explosives, this is one of the 12 that's run off, and they call them youths. One of them's 35 years old or something. Like, come on, you're trying to. The Hong Kong protesters have this weird way of making things sentimental, don't they? Has anyone noticed that? Everything's sentimental to them. They've got to have all these memorials for things, and everything's really sentimental. Bless the 12 ones,
They did that a year before, when there was this kid who so there was this whole protest going on somewhere, and there's this kid who gone up to the building, and he was
is this the guy that fell from the parking lot? Yeah,
he fell from the parking lot, from the top,
yeah.
and he was killed. He jumped up the building by himself, and then there were droves of protesters in social media trying to memorialize him, and making him as a martyr of.
Yeah, exactly. Making him sentimental and a martyr when he's nothing even. He found out that the car park put out the CCTV footage, and there's nobody around him. It's nothing.
They're trying to say that the police
did it.
has blocked off building and not letting him go anywhere but the building, but that is bullshit. They are engaging.
Footage got released. Anyway, we have to stop you there. Jen has got to shoot off. So
I've got to head off.
Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
I'm actually head off too, because it's 1 a.m.
Yeah, it's late for you.
I kind of worked.
All right. Well, also Vito, thanks for joining. We're carrying on. Ecock, did you want to talk about the education in Hong Kong?
Yeah, so it's a bit sad that Jen and Vito are hopping off, because I think they've had some really good insight. So hopefully they can come back on at some point.
Yes.
Because I think they'll know more about it than I do. But basically, I think something that's quite important to discuss is because I've got a cousin's husband who's just why don't you agree with the people of Hong Kong? If that's what they want, don't you think that's the right thing? But I think what's quite important to look at is why do they think the way that they do, and what are the foundations for their thinking. So, and I do believe that Hong Kong education, I mean, from what I've read and seen, and also from lived experiences, that it has been whitewashed by British colonizers. So, for example, this channel is in Cantonese. So if you don't know Cantonese, it might be a bit difficult to work your way through. But there's a politician called, I think she's a former politician now, but she's called Jeffy Chan. So that's Joephy Chan on YouTube. And she basically goes round and sort of shows you what is in some of these Hong Kong education textbooks. And some of them are pretty flagging off of China. Like there was one, I don't know if she dug it out or someone else dug it out. If I find it again, I'll try and share it. But basically, there's one that's quite famous, and it basically talks about two rivers, and from memory. And one of the river is clean and beautiful, and the other river is dirty and disgusting. And the correct answers for these questions, like which countries do these rivers belong to? The dirty river belongs to China, and the clean, beautiful river belongs to America. And with that kind of brainwashed thinking, people growing up on that kind of material will look up to the West. And I believe also New Moves, the YouTuber who now lives in China, he went to Hong Kong kind of quite at the height of the riots, and he did ask another person, like, what was the education like there? And they mentioned that the education whitewashed by British colonizers, that's why they think the way that they do, that they think Britain has the mainland is evil and horrible. So they've been brainwashed for decades. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, I think another really good article is the Chow Collective's article called "The Agents of Chaos." And this article talks about, it's a very long article, but there's a section in it that discusses how this writer's friend had been in Hong Kong since, I think, 1997 as a sort of lecturer, and they would kind of infiltrate these universities. They were from America. They would kind of infiltrate these universities, trying to get in their sort of neoliberal kind of ideology and stuff like that. So they use all these techniques to kind of brainwash people. And I can actually see the material evidence of that when I meet some, not all Hong Kong people. Like, my Hong Kong friends are amazing. Like, they're not like that at all.
Same.
But like, they're based, but I went to Chinese school in the UK, and I saw this firsthand. I remember in I think it was sort of early 2000s when mainlanders had started to come over to the UK. So the local Chinese school, they wanted to open up more Mandarin education because the demand was there, and obviously Mandarin is now sort of a huge dialect and the national language of China, and so it's a really good language to do trade with, to meet people, like just good. And they were really against it, this bunch of Hong Kong people that were in the school. Like, they were part of the sort of management. They were extremely against any kind of Mandarin coming in. They hated it, and it was almost a bit like a miniature version of the Hong Kong riot. They tried to do this separatist thing where they tried to like break up, kind of sort of mess up the school and stuff, and it was just terrible. And I could see their attitude is very anti-mainland. Like, they just hate anything, and not just anti-mainland. I'd say they were also anti the rest of us, because we weren't from Hong Kong either. They sort of just really looked down at us, and I do think a lot of this is to do with whitewashed education.
Definitely. And while you're talking about that, Josh Wong shot to fame for protests back in 2014 that were about the mainland trying to reform education in Hong Kong, because at the minute teachers can just teach what they want. They literally can just teach what they want. There was a case recently, wasn't there, of a British teacher. We talked about this on the pod a few weeks ago. A British teacher teaching that the opium wars were Britain trying to stop China from smoking, or some absolute brain rot, whatever he decided to teach these kids. So the mainland has attempted to fix this problem of education, and when they do, they're met with that, like you've just explained, that sort of superiority sort of feeling of, I'm not having mainland dictate education to me. I want to learn off your British imperialist history still. And I think you made a good point about I was going to say, it's completely slipped my mind. I was telling you, I'll come back to that. But yeah, the mainland does need to get its hands on the education system of Hong Kong, and it's another thing that these protesters are really trying to stop at any means necessary. Is that was what I was going to say. The first missionary school in Hong Kong opened in the 1960s. So this has been a plan since the end of World War II. The plan has been to push missionary education onto Hong Kongers. And like I said a minute ago, it's the same technique they used in Africa. If you can get people on this Western, they let these like evangelical sort of priests go over. A lot of them are American as well. Go over and open up these religious schools. Josh Wong is a student of one of these missionary schools. Everybody in his party, all those like, because they're very creepy and cultish, and that's why, because they've gone to evangelical schools, and they've learned all this evangelical education that communism is evil and all this. So yeah, the education is the main point. I think you've brought up a brilliant point on, because they're all young. A lot of older Hong Kongers are happy and not happy and content, because obviously there are contradictions at play, but they're not successionists in a way. Anyone else got any thoughts? Tom, Sammy?
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Ecock, with it all. Like it's another form of imperialism, isn't it? Is kind of, if you can break it's the classic phrase is give us a child for 7 years and he'll be a socialist forever, because like education is that important. Like you can mold somebody in whatever way you want if you get them young enough. And Hong Kong's been allowed to be this bastion of bullshit since fucking 1800s pretty much. And like the UK has kind of delineated all of this. Like they're still the major, all right, we're the ones who will put sanctions on you if you say anything, but it's all America, isn't it? It's all the American missionary schools. It's the American fucking teachers that are over there teaching the bullshit. I mean, obviously Brits aren't nowhere near. I'm not taking away our agency. I'm saying
no, but what you're saying is they clearly just don't give a shit anymore because it's not where the money's at.
Exactly. Yeah. They don't care. They know that by 2049, or is it 2047 or 2049, whenever it's supposed to be getting fully reintegrated back into the PRC, and when the one country, two systems policy comes to an end, like they know that's happening. There's nothing they can do. They can frustrate it. They can piss China off by, founding this missionary school or doing whatever.
Well, like you're saying, right, in the 60s, there was I don't think there was any intention to hand it over as well, remember? This is before handover, so this sort of thing's just made to... They will have known that at some point China will grow strong enough to just walk over the border and take it back, which is another credit to China for never doing. They could have done that a lot of times. They sat there and just... like when Jen's telling us about these things happening, they didn't invade, because everything would come back on them if they did. So they almost had to stick by the deal. These missionary schools started as America's realizing, I think, that it's not going to be a colony forever. The British don't have any intention of keeping it post World War II as their empires died. So it's like we've got to fuck shit up as much as possible before we leave, out of spite. That's what it is. And all this today is out of spite as well, because just like what Ecock said earlier, the place cannot go independent. Like, I mean, it can, but it's got to rely on China, its neighbour, if it wants to do that anyway. So it could only ever go independent on having a good relationship with its neighbours. So you can tell that all this is a false movement, because it's not a realistic thing to go independent, is it? So, but carry on about missionary schools. What were you saying?
Just that, really, like, obviously there's been, that's kind of the same point you were just making, that they just kind of put in as many obstacles for China as possible, because they know that there's no kind of realistic way for independence. There's no way for Britain to reclaim it because Britain's weak now. There's no way for America to reclaim it because there's no kind of reason for America to have anything to do with Hong Kong. There's no historical,
and there's nothing there for them to actually take. There's no oil underneath Hong Kong.
Exactly, and as we've said already, its entire wealth is predicated upon its current status. Really, China acknowledges this as well, which is why post 2049, when the reintegration is complete, the idea is for Hong Kong to be the financial arm of the Pearl River Delta, which is going to be a super city that comprises of Shenzhen, Hong Kong. I believe it will also include Macau and Tibet, but don't quote me on that. Basically, it's supposed to be a mega project area to rival the Silicon Valley in America. But that's the point. China's got a plan for Hong Kong, whereas the West doesn't. Their plan consists of wrecking in any way that they can. They'll throw anything they can. They'll fund fascist rioters to set people on fire. They'll fund fascist kids in fucking in universities to build trebuchets and crossbows and barrel bombs and whatever kind of weaponry. Or they'll go the soft power route where they'll use their dirty little missionary schools and their white sex pest tourist teachers that they've got over there, built into the system to continue the hegemonic lie. But I think as the empire gets weaker and weaker, the kind of what's the word? All of these things become more clear to us, and it's more evident for everyone to see. And
they become a parody of themselves, don't they?
Yeah.
Like Mark says, history repeats itself, first as a tragedy and then as a farce. Like American imperialism in Hong Kong is a farce.
Mm-hmm.
British imperialism in Hong Kong was a tragedy. American imperialism in Hong Kong is a farce. And the best they've got is Josh Wong, who's too scared to even get stuck in. Come on.
Josh Wong's so embarrassing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So embarrassing. Go on, Nicole.
Jen actually posted around this really good quotation in our chat the other day, and it was by Brooke Bernacchi, who is, I'm just reading his Wikipedia very quickly. He was a lawyer and politician in Hong Kong, and he was well known for his efforts pushing direct elections and political reform. And apparently, he said this: since Guangzhou has continued its successful campaign in developing economic and migration relations with Hong Kong, the colony's education curriculums have become more hostile to China. It appears the British government are less interested in persuading the ethnic Chinese in Hong Kong to sympathise with colonial rule, but to fear and despise the mainland. If Guangzhou and Hong Kong persist in integrating economically and socially, it solidifies the end of the British and North American fiscal relevance in Asia. The USA and Britain are perfectly happy with Hong Kong people disassociating themselves from colonialism if they fear China more. I fear this Western sabotage of Hong Kong and mainland China's relationship will cause instability after the handover. What we saw in 1967 against us, the colonizers, will be repeated. Only this time, the violence and unrest will be targeted towards their motherland. The more successful the USA and British attempts are at turning the people against China, the easier they can reform Hong Kong into a modern economic hub for Western capitalism. So that's direct from the horse's mouth.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's not like there's not been this plan. All of these things that we've talked about are part of it. Martyring people who are freedom fighters and all this. They're freedom fighters, they're democracy. They don't want independence. There's no way the city can even function independently. But they do want to use it to fuck shit up for China. America and Britain don't care about Hong Kong City. They care about causing problems for China.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was you just summed it up. That's the plan.
Yeah. And they don't care about people of East Asian or Chinese, Hong Kong descent at all. Like, we can see there's material evidence, people, there's been at least 300 hate crimes in the UK against people of East Asian or East Asian looking descent.
I'll tell you a funny story while you're on this. I've had somebody tell me to go back to Beijing for just wearing a mask at the start of the pandemic. You know, before everybody was wearing masks. Well, I had a mask on. So somebody must have thought that I was Chinese because I had a mask on. And he told me to go back to Beijing, which was one of the funniest things I've ever heard. Because, you know, you've not even looked me in the face.
Irony.
You've not even looked me in the face to spew racism, you know, at me. But obviously it's at Chinese people, really. You've just like saw a mask and thought, Chinese person, go back to Beijing. Carry on.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's an example of, I mean, I know that you're not Chinese, but that he thought you were. And that's just one example of like how people don't give a shit. And I don't think the government or the law, like police or anyone, they're not going to care. Like, they don't really care that much, to be honest.
I mean, they would care if somebody was to get like attacked, I guess, like just like anything else. But the point is that the police in Britain have been stretched so much as well by the Conservative government that they literally like don't have the resources to do things either. I mean, I don't know it's like for other places, but the police couldn't even deal with it if they tried because the capitalists...
there'd been like physical attacks and stuff, and they just, you know, the usual whatevers, really.
And what I find funny about these Hong Kongers over here is they're like, oh, I've seen them going on about, oh, I'm going to be targeted for racism as well. They're roped in, you know, they're seen as the same. People in the West see them as Chinese as well. So at the same time, you're trying to pretend you're not, but you're experiencing the racism directed at. So what's that saying?
As a British Chinese diaspora, like, I am very disappointed with a lot of my counterparts that, you know, I see what they post on like the internet and whatever, and I've got to admit, like my personal like British Chinese friends, they're based, like, I'm not talking about them, but then I've got others who are like acquaintances and stuff, and they like to peddle like imperialist talking points. And it's like, and then in the same breath, like moan about racism. And it's like, no, we need to cut this racism off at the root, like at the imperialist root. You can't talk about, you know, free Hong Kong, free Xinjiang, all that bullshit, and then moan about how you're getting attacked the next minute. Like, they're part of the same thing. They're not separate. But they'll do this. They'll like encourage all this kind of racism and then cry about it the next minute. And I think it's disgusting, really. Like, for example, Sarah Owens, like you were saying earlier, Chinese for Labour. She's got a whole article saying, oh, we're suspicious of the CP. And it's like, you're just encouraging more racism that way by putting forward these imperialist talking points.
And it's all to do with it always comes back to the CCP, doesn't it? Which they've changed the name of it to that. So it sounds like CCCP. McCarthyism and anti-communism from Americans. That's all it is. What we're seeing with the attacks on China from all angles, all lead back to the fact that China has a socialist government, and it is absolutely scaring the capitalist class, especially in America, if Americans actually see how life has improved for people living under socialism. If Westerners find out how a government that cares works, we said this before on the show, 95% approval rating for the Chinese government, and in the West, 75% of people don't even vote. That's how little faith they have in government. The differences are outstanding when you actually see them. I think all this McCarthyism is to do with that. A lot of people say it's to stop a war. I don't think there's going to be a war personally. I don't think it can happen. But I do think there's it's the ideological battle that we saw with the USSR again. You're not going to see a direct war between America and the USSR, but you'll see scuffles of economic interest, because they'll start wars in countries over economic influence to who they ally with. But I don't think you're going to see a direct war, but you will see a lot of smears because they can't show the truth of socialism. And this goes back to Marxism and the very start of this, the invention of this ideology, is that Marx nailed it on the head first time. And when he wrote Capital, he set a ball rolling, and then Lenin just pushed that ball even faster when the USSR was founded. They know that it can't be stopped. That's why they put so much effort into trying to stop it, because they've got to afford their nice things, haven't they? They've got to buy their yachts and feel different to everybody else and have a private chef and own their own island, and that's all it comes down to, I think. Sammy, you've been very quiet. Sammy?
Yeah. Well, I don't really have much to say, to be honest. Like, all of you have pretty much hit the nail on the head. The only thing I'm going to say is that they should have revamped the education system right over handover.
Yeah, they should have done. But and at the time of the handover, 97, Hong Kong was pretty pro-mainland, because there'd been big campaigns to promote unity.
Yeah, but then
China
you had the generation who, pretty much the millennials and Gen Z, who are going to grow up on that racist education system.
Yeah, well, somebody's asked this question in the chat, right? So I'll put it to you now. Has China broke international commitments in a limited way? If so, there might be a parliamentary precedent, and I think that's referring to Britain having precedent. No, because the declaration expired on the moment of handover, when sovereignty was transferred to China. China are in no obligation to maintain letting Britain have a say in their sovereignty since that day. That the joint declaration applied from Deng and Thatcher's meeting up until handover day, basically. After that, you govern on the fly like any other country. And he also says it might be worth voicing the actual concerns: housing market, poverty, immigrant communities, economic inequality. Is that about Hong Kong? Because I know there's a lot of that in Hong Kong, and we talked about this earlier on in the show.
Yeah, we spoke about this at the beginning, didn't we? That it missed the point of all the protests were kind of hit, directly missing the point by going for pro-capitalist protests while under a capitalist system, when all of the issues have been solved in the Socialist People's Republic of China, which is what they're witnessing. We've already kind of discussed, haven't we?
Well, it comes to this, right? This is all I was going to say. If Hong Kongers want their housing situation fixed, they should protest in favour of total reunification with the mainland and get rid of the pro-capitalist Hong Kong SAR government. Mm-hmm. They can still keep their their trading hub and stuff. Just don't have a bourgeois government. Let a socialist government step in and actually spend public funds on improving housing, because that's something the Hong Kong SAR government, they'll dip their toe. Jen said that they're trying, which obviously, if you want to stay in favour, you're going to have to give at least something back. But they'll be doing the bare minimum in that capitalist way. Of chasing profit. But that would be what I would suggest. I would suggest full reunification and enter a country that actually has 95% satisfaction rate amongst its people. That's how you solve housing crises. Socialism is how you solve housing crisis, whether it's in Hong Kong, whether it's in America, whether it's in Brazil. Socialism is the way to house and clothe and feed everybody. So yeah. Do we want to bring up anything else on today's show? We've got a little bit of time left.
I think we should definitely talk about if we just go on to the thing that happened today with the Cold War against the Cold War demonstration.
So what's this? Explain this for people who've not.
So basically, there's an event which it's got some fairly high profile names. One of the speakers on most of these events is one of the members of the Chow Collective, and it's anti-Cold War. I haven't got the name up right here.
Oh, the No Cold War Initiative.
Yeah.
It's literally just called No Cold War, and yeah,
No Cold War.
Yeah.
Yeah, and essentially, Diane Abbott was asked to. So she's a Labour MP. She's considered one of the more left-wing Labour MPs, considered to be one of Jeremy Corbyn's lot, as it were. Say that with like inverted commas, because that's what the media in the UK normally places her, like in Jeremy Corbyn's left-wing camp. So I was actually defending her yesterday because she went on this podcast to speak as a Labour MP against Cold War era rhetoric and racism against China, Chinese people, that has spiked recently since the coronavirus pandemic. And there was loads of nonsense from liberals in their replies saying you're sharing a platform with genocide deniers, you're the worst MP ever, Diane Abbott, this is why, and all this. So I was actually defending her. I was saying, no, this is one of the few Labour MPs that is standing against the tide of lies, one of the ones that's actually going against the US media driven narrative of this unproven, evidence-free genocide. And then today she came out on Twitter with 2 tweets. Bear with me 1 second while I get them up. Because they are quite embarrassing, both because they're embarrassing partially because they show that she doesn't even know what she's talking about in many aspects. I've got them here. So the first one was, on Saturday, I took part in an online meeting entitled Uniting Against Racism and the New Cold War. I had no idea that there were people on the call who denied Chinese harassment and massacres of Muslims in Uyghur. Full stop. The treatment of these communities is a human rights violation. Okay, so that was the first one. And then she's put a second tweet up 9 hours ago that says, both I and the Labour Party condemn the human rights violations in Uyghur. I apologise if my involvement in Saturday's event sent a different message. I continue to campaign against racism and for human rights internationally. So why we've brought this up is because obviously I was defending her yesterday. I was saying she was one of the last few good ones, and then she's kind of made me look like a complete fucking idiot today by coming out and defending the very thing that I thought she was standing against. But it's interesting to note, as multiple people have mentioned in quotations above those tweets, she thinks that Uyghur is a location.
Is that just a typo there? Did she meant to say of Uyghur, or she?
No. She said in Uyghur twice in 2 separate tweets. She has listed Uyghur as a geographical location in China. So that shows her breadth of her knowledge of China, because obviously anyone, even the China watchers, know it's called Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, and as such, it's just another. It's more evidence of just like the fact that even these kind of the left wing of the Labour Party and other kind of like the most left figures that our media is willing to kind of show the faces of are all embroiled in this CIA nonsense. Does anyone else want to chime in on this one?
I mean, you're seeing a lot of you're seeing it a lot more from Labour, because obviously they're the opposition, so they've got more free room, haven't they, to take up all these causes that don't necessarily go with what the government actually says. That's the only good thing about when you see Labour Party jumping on this stuff, is that you know that like it's because the Tories don't want to touch it, because they're the actual legit government. So you know that it's been palmed off onto the opposition, because they can scream and shout about it, but nothing will actually get done. I don't think it's anything different. I don't think Diane Abbott is acting any different from any other Labour MP, past, present, or future, if the party stays the way it is.
That's the thing. That's why I was so disappointed, because you've got like maybe 4 or 5 MPs within the Labour Party that you could actually consider left wing, like Richard Bergen. He's one of them. He's a genuine socialist. But even amongst the genuine socialists, most of them are trots, as we've been over before. I thought Diane Abbott was better than this, because when you search Diane Abbott's name and the word China, the first thing that comes up is Diane Abbott said that Chairman Mao did more good than bad. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not a controversial statement. It's just a fact.
Didn't she also vote for something about happy birthday to the Dalai Lama and free Tibet or something?
I mean, they all did. Jeremy Corbyn's got a history with the free Tibet stuff as well. When Xi Jinping came to Britain for a state visit, he was harassing him to have a meeting about Tibet and prove that the human rights abuses were going on. And it's like, hold on. So you're talking about Jeremy Corbyn's always been on the right side of history, and he's now harassing Xi Jinping to talk about Tibet, to bring back feudalism and slavery. Like, what are these people playing at?
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I see it.
Contradiction. And also, like, sorry, let's break down Diane Abbott's tweet. She said, I had no idea there were people, that there were people on the call who denied Chinese harassment and massacres of Muslims and Uyghurs. Just the fact that racial profiling of Chinese harassment really pisses me off, because this whole Xinjiang issue is really a projection of Islamophobia on Chinese people. And like, even as a Chinese person like existing in Britain, I actually fear like, what do people look at me and think about me now? Because like, you know, being Chinese, there's all this stuff being projected onto us. Like, it worries me. And she herself gets a lot of racist hatred, which obviously I don't agree with. I don't think anyone should racially harass anyone. But I actually complain about that. But then tweet that out, I think it's disgusting. It's like contradictory and ironic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's one of the, as Fran said earlier on when we were discussing topics, he said she's one of the most bullied MPs in British history. Should we just leave her alone? And I said, you're right, she is definitely one of the most bullied MPs in history, but this time this is justified bullying, because everything she's fucking written in her Twitter today is just, it doesn't make any sense. As you said, Ecock, when you break it down, if you look at it, massacres of Muslims in Uyghur, that's a sentence, right? Not even Adrian Zenz and the CIA have accused China of massacring anyone. The genocide that gets attributed to Xinjiang province is always referred to as a cultural genocide, and they never actually state that people are rounded up and killed ever. Not once. Not in any one of the reports. They'll always say there's 1 million people in camps, but they say it's a cultural genocide and they're just brainwashing them and all this. They never say that they're massacring them. So Diane Abbott, when she's going on to apologise for being on the right side of history accidentally for once, she's fucking coming out and saying, oh, well, yeah, but all these massacres have happened. Not even the most evil China watcher makes that claim. It's dangerous.
Well, it's not that she's made it up. Obviously, somebody's pulled her up on it, and she's posted this hastily tweet about something that she clearly knows nothing about. So she's just written what she's been told over the phone. Quickly, you know, people are tweeting you, Diane, quickly tweet this out.
But fortunately, these tweets of hers have been the most hated. They've gotten more quote tweet ratios, you know, like more quote tweets than retweets. Like on a massacres of Muslims in Uyghur one, she's got 320 retweets and 867 quote tweets. So there's quite a lot of people who are taking issue with her stance now, and I'm hoping that she's really like acknowledged that she's made a fuck up here by bowing to the whoever's told her to fucking apologize for this, because clearly, as you said, somebody's told her to do it, because the tweets are so hastily written. No one thinks the region is called Uyghur, do they? Does Diane even think it's called Uyghur? Surely not.
She even knows. Like, yeah. But for her to use a platform for called No Cold War, and the subject was about, you know, uniting against racism and the new Cold War, like, it was about xenophobia, and then for her to say that is utterly contradictory and disgusting, really. Like, it's kind of like the liberal, it's the like liberal way of doing stuff, isn't it? Like virtue signaling one thing, but like doing another thing.
Right. Whilst you said that, I'm just going to bring up liberal grifter Owen Jones wading into this debate, talking about Diane Abbott was wrong to share a platform with apologists for China's atrocities against Muslim Uyghurs, spelt wrong. This saga again underlies the grotesque double standards applied to the left and black women. And then he goes into this rant about how Tony Blair is involved in in what China's doing in Xinjiang, which I'm not even going to bother entertaining. And then finally, anybody on the left who is an apologist for the atrocities committed by China's regime against Uyghurs, spelt properly this time, is a political and moral disgrace. You should be consistent, fight human rights abuses committed by the West and by the West's allies and by China. The end. Right? Okay. You should be consistent. Yes, you should. You should consistently seek the truth of information and find out where it's come from, Mr. Jones, you absolute grifter. You do not know what you are talking about. How dare you make up lies and slander about China when you don't know anything? That's all. I can't stand the guy. He talks out of his behind.
He also did an interview with Joshua Wong, right?
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Interviewing Joshua Wong, smearing. The point is, right, what they're trying to do is they're trying to shut you off because they call you an apologist or a genocide denier. I'm not denying no genocide. I mean, I'm not an apologist for anything. I'm simply asking, saying, well, if you're telling me this, how come I can see that it's not happening from other sources? You know, that's all. That's the position that we should be taking. We've fallen into this trap before with Iraq. Are you wanting to get off? Because I've seen you've said you need to get off. So shall I say bye? Peacock?
Tom. Oh no.
It's Tom. Sorry, you were above it. That's why. Tom's had to go. Okay, so we've lost Tom for the last 5-10 minutes. We'll see you next time, Tom. Sorry about that. I just saw your name above it and I couldn't see Tom. So yeah, I just think that this whole thing is it's just ridiculous. It's been round and round for 4 years. We've done this on and off every time. You know, Hong Kong replaced it for a little bit, and now we're back at it. We've had people like Jerry on this show talk about what he's seen there. I just don't get why these people feel the need to push this lie so certainly. Sammy, what do you think?
Well, I mean, again, this is they are playing essentially what is their role, as has been the role of the imperialist Labour Party ever since its inception in the 1920s, and
which is.
Well, you just have to look at the first time they took office in 1924. They just continued on with the imperialist policies in China and India, and basically all around the world as well. They never even bothered to, give extra crumbs to the colonized people or make any concessions. They just continued on, and that's when, it was finally called the Second Liberal Party, because back then, the Liberals, which are now the Liberal Democrats, back then the Liberals were the big second party.
Mm-hmm.
And anyone who is posing to be left or socialist within the Labour Party, first off, isn't going to make a dent of difference, because I mean, Jeremy Corbyn got 70% of the vote from the grassroots members, and they just threw him out the window, essentially.
Yeah, and like we've just said before, Jeremy Corbyn is the least, the minimum amount of left possible as well. The man's still taking part in free Tibet campaigns, and whether that's through getting cash or whether it's just through being naive and not actually understanding the situation, it doesn't take much effort to research this information, does it? And to understand what's actually gone on in these places. If everybody else can find this information, what's stopping them from doing it? Unless they have this ulterior motive, or a bag of cash is coming their way. If it's just a bag of cash coming their way, then I don't really care about that too much, because I know it's not going to affect things in the grand scheme of things. But we've seen before that they manufacture support for intervention in places. Which would be a crying shame, right? Because she was supposed to be talking to a what was it? Stop the war.
Cold War, like to stop a Cold War with trying to stop it escalating into a hot war.
But we were talking about this earlier before we went on air. Stop the war over in the Iraq for the Iraq war was also playing both sides off against each other, and did end up falling down on Western lines. All they could manage to sort of get out of the powers that be were, well, don't attack Iraq unless you've got solid proof. But the point of this, by the time they were saying that, the UN was well on its way to manufacturing consent to enter anyway. So the proof was going to show up at some point because they'd already set the ball rolling to manufacture it. That's
yeah.
Go on. You go on.
Oh, sorry. I don't think there's anything wrong with the organisers of No Cold War. Like, they're pretty sincere, sort of like the people that are sort of running the show. But then you've got these people that sort of come in and out, like Diane Abbott, and it's clear that they've got some, I don't know.
They're liberal.
They're liberal. Yeah, they want to, like, No Cold War. I think they want to be like a broad umbrella, because I think one of the first like Zoom like webinar things, like they said they were sort of a broad kind of church for like people from across the political spectrum, which is fine. But then you get these people who are quite insincere, like Diane Abbott, coming in, and she just ruins it. Like, and it's just, and like you said, that
was what I was
other
going to say to you. The
really
movement can have the best of intentions, but if you let these grifter types, use it as a platform, or to use it as a platform to make themselves appear progressive or whatever, like, half of these Western politicians probably don't even understand what they're signing up to. Oh, it's just another pro-anti-war group. I'll go and speak at it because they pay me 500 quid or whatever. Like, a lot of them do it for the career. That's the danger of doing things Broadchurch and letting these people use you as a political football, if you will.
They just want visibility, really. And I think also with No Cold War, like, if you look at there is quite a huge spectrum of people. Like, they're from all around. They're all from all around the world. So I think some of these people don't. Like, obviously we're British, right? So we know Diane Abbott pretty well. Like, some of them may not realise, but we realise. And I think it's quite difficult to run something like that and then not. You don't realise. You don't have the cultural experience of what Diane Abbott and co are about, whereas we do.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I was looking at the list of.
It's a difficult thing to organise.
I was looking at the list of the people on it, and I could only really pick faults with the people that I'd heard of, because otherwise they were just some X from X country. Do you know what I mean? They could have the best intention, they could have the worst intention. So yeah, obviously, stop the Cold War is what we want. Right, Sammy, you're gonna have to go. So I think we'll wrap it up there because we're hitting 2 hours anyway, aren't we? So we've hit 2 hours 6. We've kind of got to the end of destroying Diane Abbott as well. So yeah, a great discussion on Hong Kong. I think that was our aim. That's what Jen wanted to talk about, Hong Kong. Pleasure to have you and Jen join us, Ecock.
Thank you for having us.
Awesome, you've got to come back. Now you've been on for once. You'll be back.
Okay. Well, I look forward to it. It was good to talk to you all.
Awesome. Have you got a Twitter account you want to recommend people follow?
God, I have to think about it. There's just so many.
There's just so many good ones.
So many. Well, I think Chow Collective is good. If that hasn't already been recommended.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Chow Collective. I was thinking you were going to recommend John, what's he called? Forgot his surname.
Who?
The journalist, what's his name? John Pillager, is it?
John Pillager.
Oh my god. John Pillager is my all-time favourite. Oh yeah, sorry. Real quick note. John Pillager did actually say Labour is a right-wing party in a podcast that he recorded last year about Hong Kong and Brexit and the state of the UK. So yeah, good luck to those left-wing socialists trying to make Labour left-wing, really.
Yeah. So John Pillager, is that what's his Twitter handle? John Pilger, is it? So it's just
literally just John.
Yeah, John Pilger. So Chow Collective,
okay.
John Pilger, Sammy, recommend someone.
Well, it's the same one I recommended last time, which is the Arab Revolutionaries account.
Pick somebody else.
Mango Press.
Awesome. If you're not following Mango Press, follow Mango Press. It's mango_press_. Because somebody else had taken it already, so we had to register that. But yeah, follow Mango Press. Sammy with the tip of the night there at the end.
Absolutely, and we'll be back with more articles, obviously, and another podcast episode next week.
Yeah, we've actually got articles. I know we said last time we'll get back on the articles. We've got articles. I think we've got 2 just about ready to go up, so we'll get those up in the next week. So
awesome.
Again, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
We'll see you next week, fellas.
Yeah, we'll see you next week.
Take care.
Just let this music play for like 10 seconds, and then Sammy will end the video. Don't say anything.
Goodbye, everyone.
See you later.